Oh yeah, we live, baby. What's going on, Chicago? It's your boy Rome J signing in, cultural correspondent for the Tribe and the host of We Real Chicago. Welcome to episode 10. This is our 10th episode. Thank you guys so much. We've just recently reached over 500 subscribers. So guys, keep subscribing to that channel. We appreciate all the love out there, Chicagoland. And yeah, episode 10. We got a great show lined up for you guys on tonight. All right, to kick off the show, I'm going to start off with the forecast where we can talk music and some exciting things on the horizon. But before we do that, I would like to introduce my special guest. This week, joining me for the forecast is the good Dr. Rami Nashishibi and Drea D'Nur. From the south side of Chicago, Rami is the executive director of Chicago's Inner City Muslim Action Network. He's an activist, public speaker, and musician. Drea joins us all the way from Buffalo, New York, where she is an activist, artist, and a damn good singer, might I add. Most recently, the two have collaborated for an album entitled This Love Thing. It's my pleasure to welcome them both to the show. Rami, Drea, welcome to Be Real Chicago. What's going on, guys? Drea, what's going on? Rami, I think you're muted there, my brother. There we go.
Oh, okay. Yeah, thank you, my brother. It's great being here. Honored to be on your 10th episode. Congratulations.
Oh, my gosh. Thank you guys so much. Drea, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Most definitely. So I want our audience to learn a little more about you both. So please, in your own words, tell the people who you are, what you do. Drea, please, ladies first. The floor is yours.
Yes, I am a full-time mother of 5 amazing children. I'm an artist, and that means I sing, I curate, I produce, I play the piano, compose music, and I also run a organic and halal food pantry, which I'm in the space right now. And yeah.
Wonderful, Drea D'Nur and the good Dr. Rami Nashishibi. Rami, your accolades reach very far, but if you could tell the people just who you are in a short answer, please, sir, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I think I'm best known as just a organizer, leader of a nonprofit here for the last 25 years, organizing, doing work here in Chicago, and now beyond. The Inner City Muslim Action Network, the organization I'm the founding executive director of. And we work on health, wellness, and healing in the inner city. We do that through running a holistic health center, doing a lot of reentry work, and a lot of arts and culture organizing. And we now have a chapter in the west end of Atlanta. And for the most part, I think that's how most people know me. But I've always had a foot in academia. I've kind of taught. Did my PhD in sociology at the University of Chicago, and have always been around phenomenal artists and have always kind of been artist adjacent and had the privilege and honor of working alongside extraordinary human beings like Drea D'Nur, through our artist roster and a lot of work that we've done. And this year kind of was the year, if you will, I kind of debuted as a more full kind of front-facing artist, if you will, with this project.
So, and Rami, you mentioned you've come across some really interesting artists. Can both of you just comment? How did you guys connect musically? Drea, if you can.
Yeah, like Rami said, I'm a member of Iman's artist roster. So we met that way maybe like 4 years ago. And yeah, so I would just go to the artist retreats. I'd be a part of Iman's community cafes in Chicago and in Atlanta. And when we had our artist retreats, I'd be there like just playing the piano and just taking it all in. So that's how we met.
Yeah, I think I've always, part of what we've done at our artist retreats is we would do ciphers. We'd stay up till very late hours of the night. And I think most people knew I could mess around on like percussion a little bit. And I would just stay kind of quietly in a corner, sitting very close to Drea, and just intuitively Drea's musical instincts, her artistic instincts, her human instincts, all kind of really resonated with me on so many levels. And I think that's kind of how we met. And eventually, I think it's because of that, how she shows up in space. I felt comfortable enough to kind of work up the courage one day to share some of the work I was doing.
Okay, and we got you breaking up at the end a little bit there, Rami. But so you guys come together for this 9-track album. The video for Mama Please is like beautiful, honestly. What drove the two of you to decide, okay, let's go ahead and do an album? Anyone who?
Well, I think we did initially start off with an album. It started off like one track, and it just, Drea was gracious enough to continue to open up her heart and mind to kind of receiving more from me. And then every time she would receive something, she would have a whole range of ideas. And it went from 1 or 2 tracks, the possibility of an EP, to the realization that we had enough tracks together over the course of the year in this kind of coherent theme to do an album.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it just like Rami said, it started really from one song, and it just evolved. It's just like the project, just that one song grew wings and flew, and I think we just kind of followed, where it was going, and that turned into the 9-song project.
It turned into magic, and Mama Please is a powerful song. Was it like easy picking it as the first single? Was it just like a slam dunk, this is it?
I'm gonna say yes. I think it was it's very relevant, to the times. Like, we really had to pull everything together pretty quickly in order to be able to release that. But I think the song was written like very close, not long after George Floyd was murdered. And, we spent the whole summer, and when I say we, I mean myself, Rami, and Ja'Cory Arthur, who's 1200. He's a hip hop artist on there, but he's also an activist in Louisville, Kentucky. It was really instrumental in the passing of Breonna's Law. So really the three of us were just like spent the whole summer like in activism and in art. I worked really closely with Carol Horn, a former officer who lost everything after she intervened to save a man's life 14 years ago. Everything meaning her job and her pension. So she's been fighting for the passing of Carol's law, which actually just became an actual law yesterday, thank God, here in Buffalo. So we've just been fighting and decided to dedicate the song to her living legacy, and also to honor Breonna Taylor and George Floyd in there. So it just made sense to do it now while we were in the middle of it, because it was a way to really offer some healing and some perspective on what it meant when he cried or lamented Mama Please.
Yeah, most definitely. And I saw the tribute to the courageous officer at the end of the video. And I read an article. I know that's a big thing you're fighting out there on the East Coast right now. And hey, look, Rami, the video was a major production with the dancers and the children. You guys, speaking of children, I got the Black Panther with me right now.
Yes. Yes.
He's wearing Spider-Man. It's Black Panther with Spider-Man pajamas. So what was the process like preparing for that video with the dancers and the children and everything that had to go into it, Rami?
I mean, I can't continue to stress how critical Drea and Buffalo and Carol Horn, and we have a woman by the name of Dr. Ansari, a professor there of dance, all on the set. We shot this in 2 locations in the middle of, as Drea constantly reminds people, 2 pandemics, between Louisville and Buffalo. And so there was a lot, but we wanted to honor the video. We wanted to honor the song. We wanted to do it well. We didn't want to have any shortcuts on the quality of the video. And because, as Drea said, the video is dedicated to really a one-of-a-kind, extraordinary woman, mother, grandmother, activist, organizer, human being, we really wanted it to be done right. And when we aired the video on a big town hall that we had, she saw it for the first time, Carrie Horn saw it, and she teared up because this has been such a long journey for her. And a lot of us here in Chicago, we've been involved in so many different conversations of police accountability for the last 20 years, 25 plus years, and Carrie Horn represents just a kind of a breath of fresh air of a woman who served as a police officer, did the right thing, fought for not only her rights, but fought with the people for a piece of legislation that now just passed yesterday. All extraordinary activism and organizers, and can serve now as a model for people across the country. And we've started conversations with aldermen here in Chicago. We have organizers and activists that are talking to Carrie on the team right now about how viable something like Carrie's Law could actually be here, even in Chicago and across the country, really.
Drea, anything you like to add? Very well said by the good doctor. Anything else, Drea?
No, that was it.
And I mean, hey, you guys referred to Mama Please as a call to action. Drea, what do you hope folks will take away from this song and the album, This Love Thing, which is a beautiful album?
Well, from the song, I think it's important to always look inside of yourself to see how can you contribute to what's happening in your own community. I think when someone dies and it's publicized, it becomes this like trending thing, like I think we have to be careful about the way Black murder and Black death at the hands of the police, or just the violence period, becomes a trend. I think we need to be really careful with that, because when you hop on a trend, then trends die. And so then when people stop hashtagging or when people stop sharing videos, then what happens is that person's what we need to be fighting for in terms of their justice becomes like it kind of dies with the trend. So I just would offer that people would look within and see, like, what is my contribution to what's happening in my own community versus just trying to save the world, and make sure that we are active in supporting the community organizations who are actually doing the work in the cities where we live, and also using our social medias and whatever networks we have to amplify the voices of the voiceless and to amplify just those who are no longer with us and who cannot fight for themselves. So in terms of this love thing, that I would hope that it would serve as a balm, as something that can soothe the wounds that we all feel in this world as a result of these murders. And I would hope that it would serve as like some type of relief, when you listen, that you would like discover some type of ease and just be kind of pulled back to love. Because I do believe that is the center of everything in our world, of our existence, and that is what is going to liberate us.
Anything you'd like to add, Rami?
I think Drea said it all beautifully. I mean, I think I just can't. We've been hearing from people across the world, literally across the world, who've been listening to the album, who watched the video, who are being touched in the precise way that Drea just laid out. And I love all. I mean, we have a phenomenal group of artists here on the roster. Drea has a phenomenal group of artists that have been part of this project in Buffalo. I don't believe there is any artist like Drea D'Nur on the planet right now. I was honored to write the lyrics for the tracks and put it together. And I think Drea, as you said in the opening, there's probably no other artist that I know of that as kind of speaks to the soul as compellingly and across all traditions. And so she brings that She brings her entire self, her entire soul, as do all the artists. And I think you feel that on this album. And from the bassist to the drummer to the folks on strings, everyone who has contributed to this album, you know, has contributed with not only excellence, but with a type of love that I hope people feel. And I'm just grateful people are feeling. And, you know, just hope and pray that it continues to reach hearts and minds across the globe.
No doubt. If you guys are just now joining us, it's your boy Rome J. I got Dr. Rami Nashishibi. I got Drea D'Nur, dope artists, activists. They do just about everything. We're here talking about This Love Thing, their new album streaming on all platforms. Okay, guys, so now that the album is out, I mean, Rami, Drea, what can we expect from you guys, from this fantastic duo now that the album's out? Mind you, the constrictions of COVID are hard on artists, so please, the floor is yours.
Well, I think we're talking now about how to get, you know, CDs and vinyls and to have as many of the kind of online opportunities to engage audiences as they process the album. And we are very seriously talking, even though no one knows what 2021 is going to look like. But we're talking with some serious supporters and folks who are ready to help us put together a multi-city tour in the fall of 2021 to present the work live. And that's still a prayer and hope that we can make that happen.
No doubt. Drea, anything you'd like to add? We thank you guys so much.
Thislovething.com.
Dope. Well, all right. I want to thank my special guests for stopping by and joining me for today's forecast, shedding some light on some special music, man. So everybody make sure you guys get in tune. Now, before you guys leave, let the people know where they can find you and stay in tune with the movement, the music, everything. Please, Drea, ladies first. The floor is yours.
I prefer Instagram. So at Drea_D'Nur. Same thing for Twitter, and I'm on Facebook at Drea D'Nur. My personal website is officialdreadnur.com. And for our album, you can visit thislovething.com. It'll tell you how to reach us on every other platform, and you can stream the album and watch the video and some of our interviews.
Yeah, I would just direct people to thislovething.com.
Nice. Thislovething.com. Well, all right. Executive Director of Chicago's Inner City Muslim Action Network, activist and musician, Dr. Rami Nashishibi, activist and singer, artist Drea D'Nur. Thank you guys so much for joining us tonight on We Real Chicago. We really do appreciate you guys.
Much love. Congratulations.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. 10th episode, everybody subscribe. Thank you guys. So to check out all the music we've mentioned in today's forecast, be sure to check out the description box for a link to this week's forecast playlist. All right. Now, over the last 10 weeks, HBO's Lovecraft Country has consistently held the attention of many on screen and in these internet streets. Lovecraft is based in Chicago and is a supernatural horror series following a Black family in 1950s Chicago. The show was created, written, and directed by Misha Green and co-executive produced by Jordan Peele, and it is based on the 2016 book of the same name. Journey Smollett and Jonathan Majors are lead actors in the show. Now, it's been almost 2 weeks since the season finale aired. I have so many thoughts and feelings about it, so I asked TV critic and stand-up comedian, yes, Ashley Ray, to come through and talk with me about all things Lovecraft. Ashley is a stand-up comedian and TV critic. She's made appearances at the Laugh Factory, the Chicago Women in Comedy Fest, Strip Joker, and much more. So without further ado, Ashley Ray, everybody.
Hey.
Ashley, what's going on? Thank you so much for joining me. Welcome back.
I'm so glad to be here. You know I love the tribe.
Welcome back to We Real Chicago. You're my first returning guest. Look at you.
Oh my gosh, I feel so special.
That's what. Yes.
I'll be honest, I feel like you had to bring me back though. That Lovecraft finale was too confusing.
It was now, and I want to be honest, I have to live my truth, and this is my show. When I found out this, I've been binging Lovecraft. I'm only on episode 7. Okay, and I started binging last night, so I'm like a little bit hungover from everything I've seen so far. Ashley, I tell you,
think out of all the shows you could binge, Lovecraft is a really difficult one to binge. There's so many details, so many little tiny things, and time travel.
It's a heavy one, and each episode is a legit 59 minutes. So it's a heavy one. And by the way, congrats on your premiere of your new podcast, TV Ray with Ashley Ray.
Thank you. We talk a lot about Lovecraft. It premiered last Friday, new episode coming out tomorrow. It's a wonderful podcast where I get to talk about television and not just whatever people are watching this week, but TV history. You know, I get to talk about Living Single, 227, the classics. I also get to talk about things like my favorite bottle episodes, what are my favorite TV tropes, and I'm doing it with some of my favorite actors, my favorite comedians, producers. It's going to be a really good time. So TV.
What can we, you did Lovecraft the last episode. What can we expect in this next episode coming out tomorrow, Ashley?
Ooh. So if you are watching Seduced on Starz, or if you watch The Vow on HBO, which is a documentary series about NXIVM, this crazy cult in Albany. You've probably heard about the sex slaves and they were branding people. I got to interview the director and producer of Seduced, the documentary on Starz. After I wrote this piece about it, there were 2 documentaries about this cult that were put out. And I just really felt as though the one that was created by a team of women did a very good job of centering that story around the actual victims of the cult. So I had a really wonderful talk with them. That'll be out tomorrow. But it was really special to talk with this team of just brilliant female directors.
Nice. Wow. So, Ashley, from here on, time to go to the Rome J Report. Okay. As you guys know, this is our take on arts, music, and entertainment news headlines. Ashley, you're cool with talking a little bit current events with me, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, wonderful. So Virgil Abloh, Chicago designer, entrepreneur, and DJ, collaborates with DGK and the Chill Foundation to launch a skateboarding program for Chicago's youth. Now, the program is set to launch on November 12th, for kids ages 10 through 18. The program will provide custom skateboards, skating lessons, and protective equipment for children at select boys and girls clubs throughout the city. Ashley, have you ever tried to skateboard?
Yes, I have many times, and I fail. I'm so bad at it. And like, I love this. And I got to say, it looks like Virgil put more than $50 towards it. So I think it's going to be a success.
Virgil, that's always the knock on Virgil forever.
You know what? I have to, because actually we're from the same hometown. We are both from Rockford, Illinois. So sometimes I got to be like, Virgil, you can't make the hometown look bad.
Yeah, come on, bro. Yeah, no, but I have tried to skate. I actually really got into longboarding at one point in time, which is a little bit easier than skateboarding to me, I think, because you don't have to work too hard. But anyways, coming up next, the nominations for the American Music Awards have officially dropped, right? Chicago's very own Juice WRLD was nominated for Favorite Rap Hip Hop Artist alongside DaBaby and Roddy Ricch. It's been nearly a year since Juice WRLD's passing. You already know where I cast my ballot. We pushing for the crib here, okay? And I would have also liked to see like Lil Baby there, although he is nominated for New Artist of the Year. So, Ashley, who was like your favorite person to listen to this year? What was like the song that was always in rotation for you this year? Anything?
Is Flo Milli Not Friendly?
Okay.
Flo Milli was my girl for this year. I mean, I wanted to go to Juice WRLD, but Flo Milli is the inspiring up and coming talent that like has gotten me through quarantine. She has the attitude. She gets me feeling like nobody can mess with me.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see like more people get into her.
Like I'm like naturally like I'm like a Herb dude, but like I really like Brent Faiyaz, who's been like my past 2-3 years. Like when I'm in the cut, it's like Brent Faiyaz will get me through. And yeah, he's probably been my favorite artist this year, probably. So.
Yeah, I got to give it to Flo Milli. She did what she had to do on her debut track or her debut mixtape. Like she's only 19. She might be 20 now, but she's just so young, so talented. Love to see a black girl in the game like that. So.
Oh yeah, of course. And here comes The boom, and yes, I do mean the sanctions. COVID numbers are up, and straight from the governor's office himself, indoor dining is out. That means all restaurants will have to serve people outside in the cold during wintertime shy.
Yeah.
For me at that point, Ashley, like, it's really not worth it. You might as well just order whatever you intended on getting at that point, right?
Yep. You just get that stuff delivered. It doesn't make sense to me, because I was like, when they started opening the restaurants and stuff, I was like, why are y'all doing this now? Like, this is the time when people can eat outside. Wait until the winter and see how things go.
Facts. Like, it's definitely not that big. But I see people setting up the tents and stuff right now, and I wish I would put on my coat and go have a drink.
Can you imagine, like, you're sitting outside, like, in a parking lot in a tent, trying to, like, have a drink in West Loop or something? Like, no, thank you. That's no.
That's so ridiculous. So, okay, let's dive into Lovecraft Country. All right. For those of you who have been watching, we will do our best, and still watching, I mean, we will do our best not to give away too much. All right. But if you haven't seen it, go ahead and binge it, watch it, and get that HBO free trial, right? Because the season's over now. Like, yeah. But before we get to specifics, Ashley, what did you think about the opening season of Lovecraft Country? Just your opinion.
I really loved it. I had my issues, but overall, I really, really did love it as this just new and exciting piece of Black sci-fi. It is truly something we've never seen on TV before. There are moments and stories being told that we really haven't seen before. And for that, I love it. You know, I believe we should always be pushing these white people who make TV to make TV that actual people want to watch. And that's what Lovecraft Country is to me. You know, I do think there are things I want to see fixed and changed for season 2. I want to see the show grow in a few ways. I think most of us were kind of disappointed in some of the storylines that women on the show had. I don't want to spoil anything, but I think a lot of the women on the show, particularly when it came to colorism, there were some issues with the story, some real problematic stuff. And it's inspiring to me because you see Misha Green and the team talking about those issues and saying, no, we want to fix this. Like, we realize, you know, we didn't have deep enough conversations. So it gives me hope for the future of the show.
No doubt. Yeah. And I mean, it's crazy. Sometimes when I'm watching it, I'm like, ooh, did they just say that on TV? Like, I'll be like, oh, like,
right?
It's one of those shows where you're getting what you never thought you would ever get. It's very truthful. And this is one of the hardest shows to describe to people. All right, when you're trying to tell them what the show's about, it's like, okay, there's magic and monsters and white people doing white people stuff, and plus magic, and there are some historical pieces as well against the backdrop of Chicago. And, you know, do you think the show was successful in just incorporating all of these different, crazy, but yet somewhat realistic elements?
Yeah, yes and no. I think the show was very successful in depicting Chicago of that era. I know they did a lot of work in Pilsen to really make sure things were accurate. And that shows just the dedication. But there are times when it uses these historical perspectives and real things that happened in a way that's kind of problematic, or really would benefit white characters in a way that was kind of disrespectful to the actual historical event. So I think the one everyone talked about was their use of Emmett Till in the show. And originally Emmett is seen in the show as just a friend of the younger daughter. You don't even really know that it's Emmett Till until later when they show you the picture and you realize, like, oh, that's why she was calling him Bobo. That was Emmett Till's nickname. And so eventually they get to the historical moment where Emmett Till dies. And obviously that takes place in the world of the show. Then they kind of pushed that narrative onto a white character and have her recreate the death of Emmett Till by being beaten up by 2 white men. She has an ability to protect herself, so she knows she can't die from this. But they have her recreate this moment, and it's very confusing why they have her do it. Part of it is her trying to prove she can understand what Black people go through, but it's kind of like, no white woman can do that. We don't need to see this. And part of it is that's not really recreating the trauma, because she knows she can't die. So why are you making us see this unnecessary violence that recreates a really horrible moment in Black history that we don't want to see revisited.
Very good point there. No really point in beating anybody who can't feel no pain.
Right. It's just, and when she hops out the water, like, well, that was cool, I guess. Like, why?
So that's what it feels to be Black. Yeah, I don't. Yeah. So on another note, we know that Black girls are magic, right? But seeing other Black characters, you know, go from fearing it to understanding and then using it to outsmart white folks is, you know,
yes,
you know.
And that the magic of it is probably my favorite part, and that you really see with Hippolyta too. Her whole arc, and like her and Dee, like I want a show where they're just like traveling space, fighting race crimes or whatever.
Yeah, like, and you know, and we also want to add like, but white people had it too. Like white supremacy and magic is a deadly combo, right? Like.
Yeah, and they do that in a really clever way by really talking about sort of the connection to lineage and how often for Black people that's not our choice. You know, this Black family didn't choose to have this white man's blood. That was an action he forced upon them. Right. So it really kind of gets into the issues of consent and lineage and ancestors and who are your ancestors and the magic tied to that. And that is where the show is so, so good and what I want to see so much more of in season 2.
And so I have to ask you, like, what are your thoughts on how, if you could dive into this a little bit deeper, even Ashley, I know you could do it. What are your thoughts on how characters use just like the magic throughout the series? Like,
yeah, I'm not one of those like strict sci-fi people where I'm like, every rule of time travel has to make sense. All the magic has to make sense. I'm not going to ask a lot of questions as long as like on its face, it makes some sense. Right. And mostly they were successful. I think when it came to using like sigils to protect themselves, a lot of that is traditional magic, using salt to form a circle. And that I really liked how they depicted. And then it did get a little complicated when it came into introducing magic and time travel, particularly around the time when they have to go back to the Tulsa City bombing, not the Tulsa City bomb. You know, they have to go back to Tulsa.
The Tulsa massacre.
The Tulsa massacre. I'm thinking of the Oklahoma City bomb. They have to go back to the Tulsa massacre because they have to save this book that was destroyed in a fire in their family home, and they need to get the book before it burns in order to save Dee. And the thing is that they go back in time to get the book, and then they get the book, and then they tell her, hey, by the way, this book is bound and protected, so it cannot be destroyed. So if the book can't be destroyed, why did they have to go get it before it burned in a fire? And then I'm like, somebody wasn't thinking out the timeline on that one, because then she's just holding it and walking in fire and letting it catch on fire, but it doesn't catch on fire. So it's like, if the book could never burn, where was it? But that could just have set up a whole mystery for season 2.
You never know, or you know, just a little bit of fault in the writing, which we don't want to.
But it's one of those things where it's like in the moment, it's that scene. You're not thinking, wait a second, she just said the book is bound and protected, so why did they have to go get it? You're thinking it's such a dramatic scene, and one of my favorite moments, one of my favorite lines. When she's, in this house, it's burning down. She sees like her ancestors. She knows they're not going to make it, and they're telling her, you're pregnant, your child is going to be our testament. And that is such a beautiful moment that you're not thinking about the logic of it. So, the show's successful there.
Facts. It is spooky season, and this show definitely fits within the horror genre. Like there are literal monsters.
Yes.
So
tell a lot of nods to just classic horror movies.
Yeah, no, straight up. Ashley, were you ever truly scared at any moment?
The episode based in South Korea, there's basically a whole episode focused on Tik's time in the war. They really basically completely remake it as a South Korean horror movie. It's like a total bottle episode in itself because it's so different tonally. And that's when I was terrified. That episode is just as scary as like The Ring to me. That's when I was like, oh my gosh, I really don't know how this situation's going to go. So I think if you're a horror fan, you really do get a lot out of Lovecraft Country.
That's a really good episode. And You made a good point. To me, actually, it seems like each episode is its own little movie in itself. I mean, they're connected slightly, but each episode takes on the life of its own. Can you kind of speak towards that?
Yeah, and that actually is very much based in the book that it's based on. So Lovecraft Country, the book that came out in 2016, each chapter is from the perspective of a different character. So you really are just following them for their journey, and then you get a different perspective. So each episode, I think, tries to mirror that, where the central character is someone else. So the episode that focuses on Emmett Till, Dee is kind of the central character that we follow. And then they're all kind of loosely tied together, which I think it sometimes works really well, like the South Korea episode, and at other times doesn't work as well when it's so disconnected that you're a little like, wait a second, how come we didn't see this earlier? How come Tick still hasn't told her about this? So sometimes it's a little messy, but overall, it's really brilliant how they allowed each character to build their own world. You know, you always feel as though you're getting a chance to know them deeper. Especially with his uncle, and I won't spoil that, but his story is so beautiful in how they let you kind of behind the scenes slowly.
If you guys are just now tuning in, I have the wonderful, beautiful Ashley Ray, comedian, TV critic. She just put out a new podcast. Make sure you guys check that out. Now the show is centered on the Freeman family, right? They seem to be like the typical Black family. In what ways are these characters different from what we typically see from the Black people on the small screen in our usual day-to-day TV history life?
I think typically when we see sort of historical narratives like this, they're very depressing. I mean, Watchmen is based in modern day and it's very empowering. You know, they look back on this story, but it's still based in today. And usually when you see a TV show about Black people in the 50s, it's usually going to be some sad stuff. It's going to be, segregation. It's going to be like, you're kind of terrified of reliving just that kind of trauma that they constantly are forcing Black actors into those roles. But excuse me, with Lovecraft, that's not the case. It's the 50s, but these are empowered people. These are people who very much know their goals. This isn't, sort of an aspiration to get into white communities or white places. This is very much Black characters empowered in their Blackness, making choices for their Black family and their Black community. And I think that is a perspective we've really never seen in a sci-fi show like this on TV.
And speaking of family, we see how harmful it is to hold on to secrets. Do you believe the characters were able to move on successfully once they embraced their truths and the truth of others around them, Ashley?
I mean, yeah. And I think any TV show, you're like, oh, if everybody would just tell each other the truth, this could all get cleared up. If Tick would just tell her
this, episode would be over though. It's like the series would be over.
And also the show would be over. And I think that is an interesting part of Lovecraft, because you so often see people in the show not just lying to each other, but lying to themselves. And you kind of have to ask yourself, how are the ways that I lie to myself about things like love and romance and gender and race to convince yourself of things? You see characters who should be smarter than something convincing themselves like, oh no, this relationship could be good or is safe, or this person really does love me. And then they slowly kind of realize that's not the case. This isn't what it's supposed to be. And that's what I love about the show.
Ashley Ray, everybody, we live. She's here with me. I got her until all hearts are cleared. There's a big sense of community in this show, okay? We see Letty embrace it early on after being checked by her big sister, Ruby. And then later on in the series, so does Atticus. What do you think about the growth of the characters in the series, Ashley?
Yeah, it's hit or miss for me. I felt like Letty as a character doesn't really grow enough for me. Like throughout her journey, she's kind of one note a bit. She never really grows to, trust more. She doesn't really grow to love more. She really just kind of comes to embrace her magic and power, which is great. super great, but also, you know, is kind of like, well, she started this very powerful. She started this as a powerful, strong woman. Now she's just a powerful, strong woman with some magic, which, you know, great again. But I think that sets her up for a good season 2. But then obviously you have her sister, who was kind of, to me, the more interesting character in the show out of all the women. She's the one who's really fighting to be understood, who has these desires to get a job that she doesn't think she thinks she's qualified for, but she's afraid she won't get it because of racism. And she's the one who, you know, really pushes back at these white men, especially. She's not afraid to, I'll just say, kick a white man in the ass. That's one way to put it.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, she's not only qualified, she was overqualified, which if you Black, you've heard that phrase a lot.
Yeah, and so she's dealing with all of that, and eventually she kind of starts to get that frustration of, I'm tired of always being overqualified. And they take her character on a very weird journey where she basically is given a power that gives her whatever she wants. But in the end, that is what sort of is her downfall. And, you know, this wasn't a character I wanted to see have a downfall. This was a character that I wanted to see kind of uplifted because she was the most powerful and vocal. And I wanted that to remain true. But, you know, no one is sure what fully happened with her character in the end. So that's kind of a mystery that I hopefully think the show will take on next season.
We did say that she gave the powers that be a good boot. We just gonna say that, Ashley. Now this show would have, you know, the Twitter streets hot on a Sunday night. You know, there was a ton of criticism about Lovecraft being Black trauma porn, and there was a lot of discussion about its depiction of a very real Chicago figure. Is this criticism about the show fair in your opinion, and why or why not, Ashley?
Yeah, I think it is. You know, and I was a part of a lot of those Twitter conversations. I think they were really fair. In a lot of ways, it was kind of Black trauma porn. There are moments when you're just like, that was unnecessary to see. We didn't need to see that happen this way. We didn't need to see, you know, these Black people burning to death. We didn't need to see that. You know, there is also a lot of violence against a trans character on the show that was completely kind of unnecessary. And you're like, well, why did they bring this Indigenous character in just to kill them? And that got a lot of, you know, that got called out on Twitter too. And I think all of those things are valid because this is a show that by its own measure is kind of holding itself to a higher standard. This is a show that is telling its viewers and has told all, you know, we want to take these traditional sci-fi stories and do more with them so that they are focusing on minorities, on others. And so when the show fails and in fact does something that harms the people it's claiming to uplift through sci-fi, we have to call that out. We have to say, what are you guys doing? You're doing what, you know, the sci-fi shows you've criticized, you're doing what they do when you bring an Indigenous trans character in just to kill them. And that's something that, you know, I think because people were so vocal about it on Twitter, Misha Green had to address it. And she, you know, straight up apologized and was like, I'm going to do better. So I think not only valid, but good that people, you know, engaged in that conversation and also that the people behind the show took it seriously.
Yeah, I think it's amazing whenever the people at large can get the attention of the creators. It just speaks to the just power of social media in today's age.
Twitter, it's powerful stuff. You just yell about TV and they'll be like, okay, we hear you, we'll change it.
Yeah, so you can literally start a Twitter campaign and within a day or so you can get whatever to happen. Okay, so let's shift gears a bit. This weekend is Halloween and most of us, I hope, will be staying home and being responsible. Can you give us some spooky movie recommendations, Ashley?
Ooh. Yes. Okay, spooky movie recommendations. I'm actually gonna start with a fun one. Hubie Halloween. It's on Netflix. It's Adam Sandler.
Yep.
It's Adam Sandler's new movie. And okay, you know, I'm 29. It's a really good time. If you have kids, it's especially fun. But I love Adam Sandler, and it is pretty spooky. It's pretty scary. So I say check it out.
I specifically love Adam Sandler, and it's fun because these guys that have been in his movies for 30 years, they're in this movie,
Yeah.
they're in all of his movies, and it's the same dudes from every movie he's ever been in. It's really dope. You gotta love Adam Sandler.
Yeah, you gotta love Adam Sandler, and it's a scary horror movie that's also gonna make you laugh, which I like. And then I also would, in that same category, say check out Bad Hair on Hulu, Justin Simeon's new piece. It is about, it's a complicated movie. It's essentially about evil weave that is killing people.
From what I've seen on that, the hair makes her act different.
Yeah, basically, weave is taking over the actions and bodies of Black women. It's a really fun, scary movie. That's like, it's not a traditional scary. It's a thriller Black B movie. It's very like, you're supposed to kind of laugh at some points, and it's over the top in the blood and the gore. But it's one of the best Black versions of that I've seen, especially with the politics it has behind hair and gender. I think there's a lot to discuss there. And James Vanderbeek is in it. He plays an off-putting white man. So,
what else you got for us, Ashley? Give us one more, or however.
Okay, I'll let me think. Because in the same vein as Bad Hair, I will recommend Brian De Palma's Sisters, which I believe came out in 1978. But Sisters is a pretty direct influence of Bad Hair. If you watch Bad Hair and you liked that gore, you'll probably like Sisters. A lot of the scenes there were inspired. Sisters is this movie about a woman who has an evil twin living inside of her that takes over her body, somewhat like the weave does, and forces her to do all of these horrible, evil things that a team of people tries to like hide for her. It's really good. And I think if you liked Bad Hair, you'll like to see one of the movies that inspired Bad Hair. So Brian De Palma's Sisters. And Wonderful. It's terrifying. It's so scary. It's like there's going to be scenes where you look away because it's really scary.
Every scary movie that comes from that 70s, 80s era seems to be just like too scary. I don't really mess around with the 70s.
Yeah. And it's also interesting because it's one of the rare early horror movies or of that genre that really gets into race. Because as you probably guessed, the first person to die is a Black man. You know, it's still the 70s and it's a white man's movie. So sadly, that trope still exists. But it does really kind of get into the racism of why society is willing to ignore the death of this Black man. So
Ashley Ray with us today, guys. Excuse me, it's your boy Rome J. Ashley, now, anything new that you're working on that you'd like to share with us?
Just the podcast, TV I Say with Ashley Ray. If you liked this is my podcast where I just talk about all the TV I'm watching, like all of it, the Con, the Goldbergs, the stuff that I don't even want people to know that I watch because it's so embarrassing. This is my podcast to get into all of it. I'm talking to my favorite comedians, actors, everybody, and I would love it if you subscribed. TV I Say, we're on Google Podcast, Stitcher, Apple Podcast, all the podcast platforms. So
TV I Say with host Ashley Ray, streaming now on all podcast platforms. Make sure you guys subscribe and support our good sister friend here.
Thank you.
Most definitely the host of TV I Say with Ashley Ray, comedian, professional TV critic. Ashley, it's always a pleasure. Thank you for stopping by again.
Oh, thank you so much. It's always so fun.
Thank you.
Thanks.
See you, Ashley. All right. Now, speaking of Lovecraft country, the Chicago History Museum is throwing a virtual Halloween celebration on Saturday with the show as its theme, Lovecraft Chicago, History, Horror, and Afro-Futures. Tongue twister kicks off on Saturday. Check out the Chicago History Museum's website for more details. And last but not least, make sure your voice is heard, family. We are days away from the 2020 presidential election, and there is a lot at stake naturally. To find your polling place and other voting information, check out The Tribe. That's The Tribe with 2 eyes.com. So once again, thanks for joining us. To all of our viewers, that is our show. I want to thank my guests, Dr. Rami Nashishibi, Drea, and of course, Ashley Ray. Make sure to check out the scene to see what's popping this week in Chicago. If you guys have any questions about the show or want to reach out to us, hit us up at connect@thetribe.com. That's Tribe with 2 eyes. Make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to our YouTube page so you guys never miss an episode of your boy. You can find me, Rome J, on Twitter at the RomeJ_ and on Instagram at RomeJ_TV. If all hearts are cleared, I mean, we'll catch you guys next Thursday. Stay real, stay safe, Chicago.